fraternity, but he's in a fraternity. And then, he doesn't post a whole lot of stuff on there. He actually kind of speaks against it because he's on the real, like, kind of hardcore black Israelite type vibe, but not without the uniform and stuff. I mean, just he's on some hardcore revelation, is about how black people basically are going to be the chosen people who will take over the world again, and how white people will be decimated. He's on some crazy shit, but man, I'm gonna tell you something. He goes hard against those folks, man.
It's a theory.
He makes some sense, but I ain't gonna quote him.
Yeah, it's a theory. I mean, listen, everybody gets their moment in the sun, or every position, and that's just the way it is. People feel that way.
It's always been that way.
I don't think it has anything to do with it. I believe in a lot of these philosophies and beliefs to a certain extent. I don't think it ever comes down to race, though, because it's like we're all spiritual beings, and it all comes through our spirits. And when I look at, and that's the reason why I look at these people, and I look at these people in Hampton that are doing what they're doing, and I don't care what their position is or whatever they feel like they are, and everything. They ain't shit to me. To me, they're vultures, gatekeepers. They're the gatekeepers for their overseers. In a lot of cases, if you're not out there trying to do things for your people and you're holding such a position, if you're holding that position, you need to do something with it. So it's not something that I'm feeling. Listen, I mean, education, it is what it is. It's not for everybody and everything, but it is for some people, and some people really could use it and could rock out with it. And if you hold the keys to it, and you dangle those keys and you don't use it just because you don't like the neighborhood that this brain is coming from, there's a special place in hell for you too.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if any of it matters anyway. Shit, I don't know that there's a proper indoctrination because it ain't moved the needle. It's either in slow motion right now.
I can feel you.
It doesn't exist because it has not moved the needle. You know what I'm saying?
I can feel you on that.
To the numbers.
Well, what it always comes down to is like what we're talking about the future. We're not talking about the present. And you always say, Gene, to remind you that you believe that the youth are going to come through and find a way to actually change things and make things better than they actually are. And that's not everybody else's feeling. A lot of people feel that these generations are lost and never and incapable.
No. I'm saying that they might be radical enough to find solutions that are very impactful, right? But not that we'll be better off or anything like that. But I look forward to that attempt. Should it happen? Yeah. But I don't know, what the results would be. But I do always talk about them being the ones, I guess, for lack of better expressions, they could be activated to the point where like I said, somebody could do a hack, man, that literally takes money from one class and gives it to another. You know what I'm saying? Right. That can happen. That's not like, that's impossible. It's just very unlikely, but who knows, so that's what I mean. I think it's going to be a young person to get some shit like that done, for sure.
Resourceful.
That's the word I was going to say.
All of the banking changes, crypto coins and all that kind of stuff, I think all of that stuff is all part of the beginning of the seismic shift. Yeah. You know what I mean? It has to change. You know what I mean? Like as people become more and more aware of the disparity in wealth in this country, as people and I mean everybody already knows it, but as the numbers get bigger and bigger, and the gap gets wider and wider, and if you're a millennial, there's how millennials are like the brokest people, the brokest generation ever. You know what I mean? Living back home with their parents, and this, that, and the third. As this trickles down to the next generation, they become more and more disgruntled. There's going to have to be something. You know what I mean? There's going to have to be some sort of outcry, some sort of revolt, some sort of, fracture in the system that allows more people to get in. You know what I mean? And not just get in where you fit in, but to get in and take some shit over.
Well,
I mean? There's going to have to be something.
I would have to say that my vision of the world is these next probably 4 or 5 years are the most critical years upcoming in this ever-changing society that we're living in, because things are changing so dramatically with work and with money and with culture, because people staying home and quitting their jobs is a cultural shift. That's something, people deciding to stay at home and raise their own kids is a cultural shift. People actually looking at the school systems and what the schools are teaching their kids and thinking about having had the thought of homeschooling for the past 2 years is a cultural shift. But what's going to be followed through on and what isn't is going to determine where civilization is. The end is probably, the 70s, and the 70s right now is probably where there are always times and there are ages that are just forgotten. And I think at this point, everything up until 1990 is like basically going to be forgotten very soon. People don't want to know. It's like and what do they call it in the news? Burying the lead. And the lead is Ronald Reagan in 1980.
Scrubbing the data.
Scrubbing the data, burying the lead. And it all started with Ronald Reagan in 1980. And if you don't know about Ronald Reagan in 1980 and what they actually accomplished as far as the economy and the way that the government works and the way that people work, they basically cashed in on that system. That's when the cashing in. It's sort of like, okay, we've gone as far as we can with this, so now we've got to create something new. And we're going to get our money.
Let's go ahead and extract.
Let's just go ahead and extract
all our profits.
Right, and that's what they did, and that's what the housing market was in 2000 when they started making houses available to everybody and doing loans that they knew they were never going to pay out. And, that right there that allows you to get, if you're selling mortgages on the back end, you're selling a $250,000 mortgage, you're collecting like $400, $500, some cases like $700, $800 for that paper on the back end. If you bought that, that's if you're a millionaire. Most people don't even understand it. They can't follow what I'm speaking about right now, what I'm talking about right now. But what it is it's a pull of cash out of the economy, the circulating economy. And they took that from the bank. So you take that and you put it in a bank, and when it crashes, it doesn't matter because you've already made a solid $400,000 on that loan. And you've done that 100 times, 200 times, 1,000 times. So now when the whole shit crashes, nobody has money except for you. You've basically terraformed the whole economic system, and now all the money belongs to you, and you put it in the stock market, which doesn't circulate, and everyone else is left to fight for scraps. And that's basically.
No, it was a basic pyramid scheme.
It was.
If you was underneath the top rung when that shit crashed, you probably lost every.
It was. If you bought into the idea that the way you're going to make money is by actually going out and continuing to flip homes forever and ever as a builder, and you're never going to have to worry about it crashing.
What percentage of them do you think was letting it ride at the time it crashed?
A lot of them.
Letting it ride.
A ton of them. Yo.
Just bigger and better.
A ton of them. At that point in time, that's when I was working as a mortgage banker. And you don't know how many people called me with 6, 7, 10. We had a woman that called us for a loan to my company, to my group. And this woman had 27 homes. 27 homes. Somebody had convinced her that it was a good bet and she was going to win. That person just kept selling her homes to the same company, getting that same like $300,000, $400,000 on each one because she's got good. She just allowed them to pull all that money out, and when everything crashed, she was left holding the bag. because you don't know the big bankers that are up above you. You don't know the bank that's up there. So they pulled all that money out of the economy, and then they said, you need a stimulus, and then they took that money too.
Right.
So it's like they basically siphoned all the money, and then they said, and then they siphoned all the money out, and then they said, listen, Trayvon Martin got shot. And they said, like, you know what? Y'all fight with each other over this for the next, 10, 15, 20 years. And now the whole world is in a different... No, that's what they did and everything. So now people, look at everything as race. Before I came on the show, I was listening on a wisdom app to this guy, and he was talking about 9/11. He was a police officer, and he was a terror expert and everything. And he was discussing, he was like, you have to remember what this country was like on 9/12. On 9/12, there was no race, there was no color, there was no creed, there was no money, there was no, everybody was just like...
Yeah, there was.
Well, listen, there always is in this country. But let's just say that if there was a day that the Klan and the Black Panthers were both working together pulling out rubble, that would have been the day that it actually happened. Okay? So, and then you move forward to now, and now motherfuckers can't stand each other. Nobody can stand anyone else. We had all these things going on, and nobody can stand anyone else. And if you think that's just because of people and that you weren't moved into that direction, you're crazy. But that doesn't give you any more license. It doesn't give you any more of a break in my mind's eye, because you're still stupid enough to fall for it. If you're still stupid enough to hate people for those reasons, if I don't dislike white people, it's because of the things that those particular people do to and around me. Like the guy who tried to cut me online today. But like I said, Jesus.
No, I don't think anybody thinks you don't like white people. When I talk about when I use the generalization of white people, I'm talking about historically. I'm not talking about any individual right now. Everybody's position is what it is.
But Gene, before you continue that thought, but that's how they actually think about it when you say that. They actually think that you're speaking historically. Some of them are always going to say it like, if you hate one of them in history, then you hate all of them. That's the actual snowflake shit.
Now we're dealing with white male fragility.
Yes.
That a thing now?
Yes. Yes.
It is. They mad at the movie Turning Red. White men are mad at the movie Turning Red. Or there's some white men that are mad at the movie Turning Red. You know what the movie is about?
No.
Cartoon. It's about a girl who reaches puberty, so she starts getting her period. So hence Turning Red. She turns into a red panda when shit goes sideways for her.
I've seen that. But that's what that is. Damn. Yeah.
So I ain't mad at them.
I don't want to have a conversation. Shit.
There's some white people out there. There's some white men out there that are saying like, yo, why would Pixar make this movie? Like, who the fuck do they think is gonna relate to this bullshit movie? Right? Because they can't relate to it. You know what I'm saying? So yes, white fragility is a thing.
It's a thing, right.
White male fragility.
I think all fragility just needs to go away. Like, for real. It just needs to go away. It's impossible, though, because people are now trained, going back to how we were. Back in the 70s and the 80s, damn, during the course of the day, not much shit could really get you that upset that you would break down and cry. Because if you did, people would look at you like, what the fuck is wrong with you? You know? And that was like across the board. Now, if Rob were here, instead of getting fed by the man, I forgot to mention that he's getting fed by the man right now.
What do you mean?
I promised him I would say that.
Oh, because he's having a company dinner?
He's at a company dinner, getting fed by the man. But anyway, so
I took plenty of them meals. Shit, I ain't mad at it.
Free food is free food. But listen, but for the purposes of the joke, he's getting